Coming up on Now See This. An extreme athlete finds that skydiving plus skiing equals pain. A woman catches the eye of police and news choppers.
Across the wrong lane of traffic, through that intersection.
And ends up the center of attention. And when floodwaters swamp Salvadoran streets, life can disappear in a snap. There's splashing, bashing, crumbling, and tumbling. Think you've seen it all? Now see this. Outside a small town in southern Brazil, a woman and her 2-year-old daughter are sinking fast. A passing motorist is in the water trying to save them. One man lifts the little girl out of harm's way. But rescuing her mother will not be so simple. She's afraid to let go of the car. For good reason. The automobile sinks further, and it appears the child has been orphaned. But then the mother pops to the surface. Relying solely on survival instinct, the woman somehow treads water as her car is sucked to the muddy river bottom. She lasts until the man wades in and helps her onto dry ground. But she's still panicked as she frantically searches for her daughter. But she's so overwrought that even when she realizes one of the rescuers is holding her little girl, she continues crying and sobbing, unable to contain her emotions. And one of those emotions is gratitude, as she hugs the man who saved her and her child. The relieved woman, Jane Batista, has driven this road many times. But this day, an unexpected bump put her over the edge and into the water.
Bati naquele buraco, tentei frear, o carro jogou pra cá, eu puxei, tentei frear e não vai. Colocar a mão pé no freio, pegar a embreagem, fiquei desesperada. Tava pelo menos ela.
What was even more unexpected was that the water was so deep, this close to shore.
Ai, minha filha, por favor!
But how did these random rescuers just happen to have a camera? They're a news crew returning home from covering a far less compelling story in a nearby town. And the man who put his life at risk to save them is a reporter, Sandro Ivanowski. Jane's husband arrives on the scene, grateful his wife and child are both alive.
Sinto muito aliviado, né, de não ter acontecido nada com a minha menina, nem com a minha mulher. Graças a Deus, né? O carro a gente arruma. Agora a vida não tem jeito.
He and his family are glad that the news crew, who usually documents tragedies in the making, was willing to jump into the middle of a story in progress to save 2 lives. A small town in New Brunswick, Canada has a big-time rescue on their hands. 3 dolphins are beached 5 miles from the ocean in a muddy inlet that's gone nearly dry due to low tides. Rescuers Peter Brzezinski and Mitch Short hit the shallow waters in a state of shock. One look at these anguished aquatic mammals tells them they need to act fast. But what should they do?
We are quite prepared to respond to a human emergency, but dolphins stuck in the mud, it was something else.
They quickly discover that in waters this shallow, their boat isn't a solution. If there's any hope of dragging these dolphins to deeper waters, the guys are going to have to do it by sheer brute strength.
The main difficulties with this rescue was the size of the animals. The dolphins are approximately 7 to 8 feet long, weighing anywhere from 200 to 300 pounds.
Rescuer Troy Boomer knows they've been marooned for several hours. And to a dolphin, that's simply too long to be high and dry.
First, I didn't know whether we were going to succeed on rescuing the dolphins. Physically, you could tell that they were getting exhausted.
A marine biologist rolls on scene and delivers some more disturbing news. He tells rescuers the animals are in serious danger of taking in mud through their blowholes. Rescuers head out toward the dolphins to try to clear their airways and comfort them if they can.
You could see the dolphins flailing around in the mud, but when we got over to them, it was like they knew that we were there to help them, and they calmed right down.
2 of the dolphins welcome their assistance, but when they are pulled into slightly deeper waters, it seems to be all for nothing.
After we got them into the channel, the water was too shallow for them to swim on their own. They were just lay on their side and kick.
Worst off is the 3rd dolphin, who is in desperate need of some attention. He's stuck all alone on a mound of mud and is barely moving. Peter is a paramedic by trade, an animal lover at heart. Between the two, he's determined to risk his own life to save another.
The mud is deep. My problem was to get to the dolphin and not get stuck.
With the rescue sled in tow, Peter slowly sloshes his way to the dolphin's side.
I just look at him and you can see the mouth full of the teeth, and I was just thought crossed my mind, if he is going to fight me, like, he's much stronger and much bigger than I am. And at the same time, you can see immediately in his eyes that he almost like welcomes you, like come here, give me a hand.
Peter uses every ounce of strength he has left to load the dolphin onto the sled and keep him there. A team of rescuers pulls the 2 of them in, and it's touch and go the whole way. But Peter refuses to accept failure. This dolphin is coming home. Locals have seen these men pull off many miracles before, but this one isn't over yet. They have to get the victims back into the ocean. With all 3 dolphins now within arm's reach, rescuers undertake the massive effort of strapping them into a pickup and hauling them to the ocean's healing waters.
Hold on. Okay, bring it here. Okay, get the truck out. You want the truck out? Up there, Ben. Just gotta watch it.
The dolphins seem to welcome the cool waters, but rescuers stand watch until they see the dolphins begin to swim on their own.
We're not here to put on a show. We're here to do a specific job. We did it well, and it was just a great deal of personal satisfaction that we rescued 3 dolphins and successfully released them.
And before these beautiful creatures head out to sea, they swim close by, a sign of their gratitude and the bond they formed with the people who saved them. In Burbank, California, the temperature is even hotter than normal as a strung-out drug suspect burns up the streets.
Whoa! Did he hit that van? Did he hit him? Just barely. Almost hit that van. Almost hit that van.
The driver thunders along at 20 miles an hour over the speed limit.
Going very fast now. Into center divider, about 50 miles an hour. Perhaps 60 miles an hour now.
The speedometer keeps rising, and police are left in the dust.
The police officers are backing off rather dramatically now. The high rate of speed is about 60 to 70 miles an hour right now.
Even when the driver slows down, the maneuvering is too erratic for police to move in.
Left turn, almost a crash right there at that intersection.
Everyone wonders, who is this madman on a rampage? The news camera zooms in for a closer look.
The driver has very long hair.
And it turns out the madman is actually a she-devil. Typically, female suspects are not as aggressive as guys are. But this driver isn't behaving very ladylike.
Got a red light, San Fernando. Looks like this person's gonna get boxed in. It's gonna be boxed in.
The suspect has other ideas and rumbles through a gas station to escape. Everything this woman does is unpredictable.
Approaching Western's got cross traffic, red light, cross traffic. If this person tries to go through, it's gonna be very, very dangerous. A U-turn.
As the chase enters an industrial area, police put the pressure on once more. But they are forced to back off again when she reaches a crowded side street.
Got heavy construction going on, people jumping out of the way, as you can see.
Clearly, this is not a nurturing Earth Mother type. She seems bent on destruction and taking other people with her.
Almost a hit right there. A very, very narrow pass.
Flying into the most dangerous situations, the woman is determined to smash more than stereotypes.
Into the center divider, across the wrong lane of traffic, through that intersection, narrowly missing that pedestrian.
More units are brought in to help bring this chase to an end.
We're looking at about 5 LAPD officers right now behind the vehicle, stretched out perhaps a block behind.
But the suspect doesn't seem intimidated by the show of force. But before the units can pit the vehicle, the desperate woman barrels into a residential neighborhood. Throughout the entire pursuit, the elusive lady has been lucky evading police. But finally, her luck comes to a dead end.
So the police officer has the person pinned up against the sidewalk and head on into another, make that an LAPD, that's a Glendale officer. This person is going to continue to try and ram the officers. Very, very dangerous situation. This person is completely boxed in, guns drawn. The person's still trying to get away. That one officer, you can see, backed off. He didn't want to be in the line of fire.
Even surrounded by armed officers, the irrational woman refuses to surrender quietly.
The person is still moving,
One of the officers reaches in and turns off the ignition. The idled suspect is pulled from the vehicle, and the chase is over. At last, the crimson-haired wild woman is taken into custody. If she thinks being female will soften her punishment, she's in for a rude awakening. After all, she faces charges including felony evading and assault with a deadly weapon, namely, her car. The red-headed vixen led police on a red-hot pursuit.
Whoa, and almost hit that van.
And while some women would love to be surrounded by men in uniform,
a U-turn.
For this woman, it was her downfall. Some people would call this sport crazy, and they wouldn't be wrong. But its official name is blade running, and it's one of the most exciting and dangerous sports ever to hit the slopes. Inspired by a sequence from a James Bond movie, blade running calls for competitors to jump out of an aircraft high above the mountains, parachute down to the ski slope, and slalom through a gauntlet of banners known as blades. At speeds reaching 60 miles an hour. Once they touch ground, there's no getting up again. To blade runners, risk is part of the thrill, but sometimes the pitfalls can lead to disaster. Dan Fairchild is beloved by his fellow blade runners, and one of the most friendly, outgoing guys in the sport. At a blade running meet in Squaw Valley, California, Dan performs well in his first 2 runs down the mountain. But on his 3rd attempt, something happens that will change Dan's life forever. A sudden downdraft smashes Dan onto an icy knoll. Legs flailing, he tries to get airborne again, but there's no stopping it. Dan tumbles down the course until he ends up in the trees. The first rescuer on the scene gives the signal that help is needed right away. Soon, more rescuers arrive to aid the victim. To their horror, they discover Dan cannot move his legs. He has broken his back and is paralyzed from the waist down. To Dan, the memory of his impact is all too clear.
Instead of feeling my butt hurt, which you would think would be the most, where I'd feel it first, or my legs hurt, there was no feeling of pain there except for pressure. I looked down at my legs, I tried to move them voluntarily, a way that I wanted to. They wouldn't move, so I knew I was paralyzed right then and there.
Just before his fateful run, Dan swapped his parachute for one with controls he wasn't as familiar with. Consequently, he couldn't steer himself out of the violent downdraft.
The winds on the mountain, they change. They could be going uphill 1 minute at 20 miles an hour, and the next thing you know, you've got a wind going downhill at 20 miles an hour, or maybe even faster.
This is where most people would lose hope. But Dan refuses to lead a hopeless life.
What kind of jump master are you?
I mean, I have a little different perspective on what I do in life now than what I had before.
Now, several months later, Dan is going back in the air. Many of his friends have asked him not to go, but this is something Dan has to do. As the plane climbs in altitude, Dan's anxiety grows. At last, the moment of truth arrives. If Dan looks right at home free-falling through the air, it's because he is. All too soon, the dive is over. Yeah! But Dan has friends waiting on the ground to greet him. Yeah! For Dan Fairchild, it's been a giant leap into a whole new world. And now, he's ready for more.
The last thing I want to do is be looking at the ceiling in a retirement home, wishing that I would have done this. And I'm sorry, I'm going to do it all if I can.
In Illinois, employees at the Glen Ellen Animal Hospital were about to end their Friday shift when they heard a loud rumble. In seconds, the entire back part of the building, housing the X-ray room and lab, collapsed, taking its occupants with it. Luckily, none of the victims are human, but are they alive?
I talked to a woman who works in the animal hospital, and she said when the back part of the building collapsed, that there were people and animals back there, but they got them out.
The fire chief hopes that everyone, human and otherwise, is safe. But as far as searching the wreckage, his hands are tied.
I'm not sure if there were any injured pets. We did have a number of animals both in the building and in the hall. Our concern here is that the building might continue to collapse, so we've restricted access to that area.
That's when emergency personnel suddenly learned that not everyone made it out. Muffled cries emanate from the rubble. Flashlights start searching the pit.
We could hear a little puppy crying. We thought he was buried under the debris.
Popping out from beneath the shattered remains of an animal hospital comes a small puppy. But the little dog seems a bit dazed and confused. Fire personnel try to coax him over to safety. But the dog stays to the middle of the debris, just out of reach. Rescue crews pace the edge of the pit. Their chief won't let them go any further. The debris may be stable enough for a 5-pound pup, but a 200-pound fireman could be swallowed by a cave-in. For almost an hour, the pup waits for someone to come get him. Then, nosing his way through the crowd, comes a rescuer that seems to have the right qualifications.
We were standing here a little while ago, and we noticed that someone had a retriever, and it turns out it was the vet's dog.
With a safety rope tied on and no specific rescue training, the retriever simply acts on instinct and heads for the pup. It appears that those instincts also sense the danger.
He kept going to the puppy to rescue the puppy, and he was terrified.
Finally, the retriever gets the pup's attention. The little animal stumbles over the mountain of debris. And disappears. But the retriever is relentless. With continued coaxing, the pup reappears and follows the bigger dog's paw prints out of the pit.
Some of us started clapping a little bit when we saw the puppy, and the policeman said, "Please, please, you'll scare the dog."
But clearly, this little black pup has no intention of heading back to the destroyed building.
So when the puppy went up the hill with the dog, the policeman turned around and he says, "Okay, now," and everybody just clapped and hollered.
Safe in human arms, this dog has a new leash on life. And with all the attention, will certainly find a more secure roof over its head. As for his rescuer, no medals necessary. A simple pat on the head will do. Rains pummel El Salvador for more than a week, forcing thousands to flee danger zones and low-lying areas. Flooding has destroyed 29 roads, several bridges, and the angry churning waters have claimed 8 lives. Parents clutch children tightly or carry them across flooded roadways so as not to be swept away. Civil defensemen escort this man from a danger zone and quickly see how fast people can disappear in the muddy water. The man steps into a hidden hole beneath the surface, and if his chaperones hadn't been there, he might have been lost. Here, rescuers have strung a rope across raging waters to help a man cross to the other side. Just as one civil defenseman tries to go out and save him, the strength of the churning water overcomes him. Red Cross workers act quickly and jump into the water. But the weight of the 3 men is too much for the thin line. In mere seconds, all 3 men are sucked downriver. The crowd quickly rushes to the other side of the bridge, praying they will find even one of them alive. They are stunned when all 3 men miraculously walk out, saved from a watery death by a fallen tree across the wash. In a matter of days, the floodwaters will recede, and the people of El Salvador will try to piece their lives back together. But for some, the very fact they still have their lives at all is a miracle. A brutal force has been unleashed upon the people of Gloucester, England. The scores of injured writhe in agony on the rain-soaked ground. Paramedics are overwhelmed by the number of twisted limbs and shattered bones. So what hideous evil is responsible for this catastrophic devastation? One word: cheese.
I was just sitting in the audience and then the cheese came towards me and hit me in the eye.
It's the last Monday of May, and for the thousands flocking to Cooper's Hill in Gloucester, that can only mean one thing: cheese rolling. Arguably one of the most dangerous sports in the world. It's an annual event in which roughly 50 men run down a 45-degree incline in pursuit of a 9-pound wheel of cheese.
I must admit, I think anyone taking part in it's got to be a bit mad, like.
The object is to be the first to the bottom, whether that be on your feet or face, although it's usually the latter. With the odds of being injured holding steady at 1 in 3, why would anyone want to participate?
Yes, it's tradition.
In fact, it's a tradition that some say began as an ancient fertility rite. Others say it's a good form of population control. Either way, it's a custom which dates back to the 18th century. That's over 200 years of chasing cheese. Or at least attempting.
That's the worst tumble I've ever taken in my life. That was horrendous.
Despite the high risks, contestants come from all over the world.
We saw it on TV last year and decided it was definitely the place to be, so we arrived and got injured in the first race, unfortunately.
With so many people arriving from so far away just to fall down a hill, it's fair to assume the rewards must be high. So what does the lucky first place roller get? Besides bragging rights, the winner gets the cheese. The cheese that's been rolling around in the mud. That's the grand prize. Now, the cost of a 9-pound block of Gloucester cheese is about $60 US. The cost for medical bills incurred while chasing a 9-pound block of Gloucester cheese, considerably more. Still, that's not deterring anyone.
I think everyone should try that. Never experience anything like that ever again. That was a rush!
And it seems that as long as cheese is flying down a hill at over 30 miles per hour, these people will continue to say, let the good times roll.